I was there when it began. Not the war, not yet. That came later. First, there was just confusion. A quiet scandal, hushed and passed between diplomat pouches like a smuggled virus. A human had died. Not just died. That's too clinical a word. He was killed, stabbed in the back, literally, during a trade delegation on Veridon Prime, a neutral world. At the time, we assumed it would be swept away like all such minor galactic incidents. An unfortunate mishap, a regretful misunderstanding. Nothing more. We were wrong. I should clarify my position. My name, untranslatable in your tongue, but for simplicity, call me Relin, and I am a diplomat of the Avanti Accord, a respected race, known for our patience, our tact, our obsession with peace. We have signed more treaties than the Draxian have fired plasma rounds. For cycles now, we have acted as intermediaries between younger species. And among those younger species were the humans. Oh, how we misunderstood them. We thought they were quaint, amusing, still figuring out their place in the galactic order. Their clothes were oddly varied, their food involved combustion, and their language was an unholy mess of idioms and snarled consonants. They joked too much, laughed at solemn ceremonies, drank things that melted Zarlon metal, and when they cried, they didn't hide it. How embarrassing. But when one of them, an envoy named Jonathan Hale, was killed on Veridon Prime, the mood shifted. The official report was buried under legal jargon. Failure in local security protocols, unfortunate aggression by a rogue veteran youth, no diplomatic consequences warranted. And for a few days, the humans remained silent. That should have been our first clue. Humans never stay silent unless they're thinking, and when they think, things start breaking. Then came the signal, not from Earth, but from a human ship in neutral orbit. We acknowledge the loss of our citizen. We request formal investigation. We expect justice. We will wait exactly 12 Earth days. 12 days. We chuckled. Time is subjective across species. To us, 12 Earth days was a blink, a courtesy. To the humans, it was a countdown. The first sign that something was off came on day 4. A courier vessel from the Terran Union docked at Council Station Sigma, requesting nothing, demanding nothing. It simply dropped off one item, a data cube marked Evidence File, Jonathan Hale Incident. That was it. No diplomatic entourage, no accusations. Just a small black cube that emitted an odd rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat. Naturally, we ignored it. The Galactic Council had already issued its conclusions, and reviewing evidence from a grief-stricken, emotionally unstable species was not worth our time. But then the cube activated, on its own. No one touched it. No one issued clearance. And yet, every terminal, every holoscreen, every data node within 10 parsecs suddenly displayed the same footage. We saw what the humans had seen. Jonathan Hale did not die in a misunderstanding. He was lured. The footage, somehow spliced together from multiple angles, including encrypted city feeds no outsider should have accessed, showed him being led down a side corridor, his guards distracted by a staged altercation. Then a Vetrin youth, masked and hooded, drove a plasma blade into Hale's back while whispering something into his ear. The message was translated within minutes. This is what your peace gets you, human. It wasn't just an assassination, it was a statement. And the humans had recorded every frame, every angle, every face. The cube shut off after 13 minutes and disintegrated into ash. No one understood how it bypassed Council security. No one even knew the Terrans could access Vatran City surveillance, let alone decrypt it. That's when the unease started. The kind of quiet unease that spreads in Council chambers like cold air through the seams of a too small ship. The kind that makes predators stop eating. We assumed Earth would now demand reparations, perhaps a trial, a sanction, maybe a show of force. But instead Earth sent silence. No messages. No further transmissions. Nothing. Just the ticking of their 12-day timer, now halfway done. By day 7, the Vatran High Voice issued a reluctant statement of regret. It was vague and filled with the usual fluff about cultural misunderstanding. I remember watching it with Ambassador Kethra of the Krixari and joking, humans are probably sulking somewhere, playing sad music and sharpening knives. She laughed. It wasn't funny the next day, because day 8 came with another message. Short. Cold. 16 confirmed participants. Names listed. You have 4 days. They had names, not just of the killer, of the handlers, the decoys, the planners, even the one who bribed the guard to look away. And in that moment, something shifted. Everyone in the chamber, every scaled, feathered, furred, or gelatinous form, felt the shift. Humans weren't sulking. They weren't sharpening knives. They were hunting. By day 9, whispers had become roars. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were called, and for once, the humans didn't attend. Not virtually, not physically. Their seat remained empty. A single Terran flag rested where their ambassador usually stood, a piece of cloth, oddly poignant, fraying at the edges like something ancient. The Vatran delegation fumbled through their apologies, promising internal inquiries and detainments. But even they seemed afraid that none of it would be enough. That humans weren't waiting for justice. They were measuring it. I tried to speak to Ambassador Holt, an older Terran known for his dry wit and fondness for off-world cigars, but he'd disappeared. Vanished from his quarters 2 days prior. According to council records, he left one note. I have nothing more to say. My people will speak for themselves. It felt like a resignation, or maybe a prophecy. Day 10 arrived with a sound, not a message, not a speech, a sound. Across all council channels, regardless of encryption level, a human frequency was broadcast, a recording. At first it was just ambient static, like wind echoing across a desert. But then came the hum of engines, distant thunder, metal straining under acceleration. And then, a voice, calm, male, human. We remember hail. 3 words. That was it. It played on repeat for exactly 1 Earth hour. Then silence again. Veridan Prime, for its part, went into lockdown. The Vatrans scrambled their fleet around the planet, pulled patrol ships from neighboring systems, and swore to conduct tribunals for every individual on the list. But the humans never responded to any of it. The galaxy had begun to understand something awful. This wasn't a diplomatic standoff, it was a funeral march. And the humans had already picked the dirge. By day 11, Terran ships began to move. Not warships, not yet. Freighters, science vessels, civilian liners, all leaving council space, all returning to Earth, to Sol, to whatever dark corner of the galaxy they called home. Quietly, methodically, as if retrieving something valuable before a storm. Some called it cowardice. I called it strategy. I watched a Yavanti senator ask, "Are they retreating?" I answered, "No, they're clearing the blast radius." Then day 12 came, and the clock struck 0. No declaration of war, no ambassadorial outrage, no thunderous council debate, just a system-wide blackout across Veridan Prime. Every ship, every orbital relay, every satellite, dead, no power, no signal, just darkness. I remember standing in the observation deck watching the holofeed stutter and die and thinking, this isn't vengeance. It's a demonstration. Then moments later, Veridan's night sky ignited, not with bombs, with light. Dozens, no hundreds, of unmanned Terran drones appeared in low orbit. Sleek, black, near invisible against the void. They did nothing, fired nothing. They simply hovered, watching, waiting. Humanity's answer had arrived, and it didn't roar. It stared. I've seen wars begin with trumpet blasts, with declarations, with the trembling of old fools standing before flags pretending history listens. This was different. It started with stillness. The Vatran military scrambled fighters to intercept the drones. None reached them. Engines failed mid-flight. Communications jammed. One patrol ship simply fell from the sky, its gravity regulators reversed, safely, softly, like a child placed in timeout. Not destroyed, not harmed, just disabled. Some of my colleagues clung to hope. Perhaps they only want to intimidate, they said. Perhaps they still want negotiation. But that hope shattered the moment the first name from the human list was taken. Taken, not killed, not arrested. The Vatrine official responsible for bribing the guard who allowed Hale's assassination was located in an underground facility 3 kilometers beneath the surface. And yet somehow, a drone descended, bypassed a half-dozen defense grids, emerged with the target in tow, and vanished before anyone could react. The council demanded an emergency meeting. None of the humans attended. Again. So we watched, helpless as it happened again. And again. 16 names. 16 disappearances, no blood, no destruction, no warships in orbit. Just precision. Unrelenting, clinical, terrifying precision. Some tried to strike back. The Vatran fired on 3 of the drones, their weapons locked, misfired, or backfired. One Vatran cruiser managed to hit a drone with a direct pulse. The drone didn't even flinch. It shimmered, its hull liquefying for a moment, like light through oil, and resumed position. That was when I heard the phrase whispered in over a dozen languages across the chamber. They are beyond us. Even the Draxian warlords, creatures who respected only fire and conquest, fell into a stunned silence. Their general, Kroltek, muttered something I never expected to hear. This is not war. This is a reckoning. By day 13, 16 veteran individuals were gone, plucked from bunkers, space stations, even cryo chambers. None were harmed. They were simply delivered. To Council Station Sigma. Tethered in orbit, floating unconscious, sealed in containment pods marked with Terran insignia. As if to say, we don't want war. We just wanted our justice. Here it is. No speeches, no diplomats, no broadcast, just 16 living bodies, neatly packaged, delivered on time. One of the council members, a plenary philosopher named Orvax, summed it up best. They did what we never thought to do. They made justice an act of science. And still, we were terrified, because it wasn't over. The drones remained, hovering, watching, not above Veridon now, but above other worlds. Council worlds, Ivanti outposts, Draxian border stations. One was seen over the orbit of my home colony on Trisari 3. They weren't targeting us. Not yet. They were reminding us. One of ours was killed. We responded. This is what happens when you touch Earth. I would love to say the Council responded with dignity. We didn't. We panicked. You see, we thought we understood scale. The Krixari measured influence in fleets, the Draxians in weapons tonnage. My own species, the Avanti, preferred economic control. Subtle, slow, like a vine wrapping around a tree until it chokes the trunk. But humans, they'd redefined it. They had influence without even speaking. When the drones spread, so did paranoia. On Gorash, a border colony where humans had never even set foot, governors ordered the evacuation of high-ranking officials. On Noru Station, an entire fleet changed formation to avoid passing near a drone. No command was issued by Earth. No threat made. Just presence. We were used to power being noisy. This was worse. Then came the Terran broadcast. Not to the Council, not to Veridon, not even to their allies. To everyone. It interrupted scheduled programming, sliced through comm encryptions, appeared in dreams for some telepathic species. Just one feed, one voice, one human. I recognized her. Captain Ellen O'Rourke, formerly of the Terran Defense Initiative, a war veteran, resigned years ago, no current position on record. Apparently that no longer mattered. She stood in front of a plain black screen, no flags, no insignia, no rank badges. And she said this was never about revenge. It was about a promise made by a species that once tore itself apart and swore, never again. You killed one of ours. You mocked our grief. You dismissed our patience. And now you understand. We do not break things first. But we finish what others start. 16 were taken. No others will be harmed, unless you choose to test our resolve again. We do not desire war, but if one should come, we will not fight it the way you expect. Earth watches. Earth remembers. Earth endures. Then she blinked. Once. And Earth never forgets. Transmission ended. No dramatics, no ultimatums. Just closure, or at least what we hoped was closure. The problem was, by then, the damage had been done. Markets across the Council plummeted. Several species pulled out of interstellar treaties with Earth. Not because they feared attack, but because they feared being watched. The Vatran were stripped of 2 key voting positions. One minor race. I'm embarrassed to say I forget their name. They smelled like boiled kelp and reproduced via argument, formally surrendered to Earth, just in case. Even the Draxians, who once called humans the soft ones, issued a statement recognizing Earth's unconventional supremacy. We Avanti? We went into hiding. We shut down trade links, rerouted traffic, and purged our archives for any mention of Jonathan Hale, terrified that some old comment or memo might resurface and earn us our own drone above the capital. For cycles, humans had been the court jesters of the galactic stage, unpredictable, emotional, annoyingly resilient. We joked about their caffeine addiction, their obsession with dogs, their inability to sit through a 10-minute meeting without cracking wise. We didn't realize those were symptoms of a species that had lived with death at its doorstep for millennia and decided to smile anyway. And now we saw the smile vanish. In diplomatic circles, we have a phrase, "A quiet room speaks loudest." By day 15, Earth had returned to silence. But that silence had weight now, gravitational weight. Even when no words were spoken, systems aligned themselves to avoid scrutiny. Trade lanes rerouted, military drills rescheduled. Treaties were reviewed not by their text, but by the question, would this offend the humans? And yet, in the midst of all that fear, something more dangerous began to emerge. Curiosity. Not from us old-world diplomats, no. We were too seasoned, too scarred, too political to chase ghosts. But younger races, the ones who had only recently joined the council, began to see Earth differently. They whispered in private channels. How did they build those drones? How did they extract people from bunkers without firing a weapon? Can we learn from them? I attended a conference on Delvia, neutral ground, where a dozen minor empires gathered to discuss post-incident security strategies. The room was packed with scientists and generals, and not one human. But their names sat on every tongue like a forbidden flavor. A Telrani strategist gave a presentation titled Humanitarian Suppression Protocols. It sounded clinical. It was anything but. Slide by slide, she outlined what made humanity so dangerous. They used no centralized command grid. Their drones were AI-operated but human-supervised, each unit capable of independent operation, yet somehow coordinated. Their target extractions occurred simultaneously across multiple systems, suggesting instantaneous communication beyond council range limitations. They didn't escalate. They anticipated. But her last point silenced the room. Every species in this galaxy has war theory. Earth has loss theory. They do not prepare for battle. They prepare for betrayal. It struck me then. What made them different? We prepare for conflict in order to survive. They prepare for tragedy in order to endure. And endure they have. A species that survived self-extinction level events. That turned their planet's worst weapons into energy sources. That flew to their moon with less computing power than a modern calculator and came back with poetry. A species that learned how to cry before it learned how to speak. Now those same humans had vanished again. No new messages, no follow-up demands. The drones remained, but dormant, hovering still, like statues of warning, a reminder in orbit. And Earth? Earth went dark. They closed their embassy channels, refused council meetings. They weren't hiding. They were observing, watching us respond, watching who blamed who, watching who tried to capitalize on their display. We began to turn on each other. The Krixari accused the Draxians of provoking the humans with old border skirmishes. The Vetrin tried to place blame on rogue political factions. The Plenari issued 100 public statements of loyalty. None acknowledged. And through it all, I kept asking myself the same question. What if Hale wasn't the first? What if Earth had let this slide before? What if they had warned us, quietly, again and again, and we simply failed to listen? Now, with one single death, they had redrawn the lines of diplomacy, and we all understood. Earth was no longer the newcomer at the table. They were the table. It was around day 21 when the simulations began. Not Earth's simulations, ours. Across dozens of research collectives, strategic think tanks, and military academies, the question was whispered, then spoken aloud. What if we had gone to war with Earth? I attended one such briefing on a diplomatic visa. It was classified as theoretical modeling for future diplomacy. In truth, it was a desperate autopsy on a battle that had never happened but might have, and the conclusions were grotesque. The first scenario imagined a preemptive strike, 50 Council ships coordinating to overwhelm Earth's orbital defenses. Within 20 seconds, 1/3 of the ships were disabled. Not destroyed, simply shut down by unknown interference. The second wave initiated fire on planetary targets. That's when the projections broke. Somehow, Earth's orbital systems responded with timing so exact it bypassed the simulation's reaction code. The system flagged it as an error. It wasn't. It was reality. When they reran the scenario with a delay, simulating a slower response from Earth, the system returned a message. No victory path calculated within known variables. The instructor, a veteran of 3 Draxian skirmishes, stared at the results and simply muttered, "We would have lost before we even arrived." This wasn't bravado. It wasn't myth. It was data. And the worst part? None of it accounted for what would come next. You see, war is not just measured by the first strike. It's measured by what remains after. And Earth would have rebuilt. They always rebuild. It's written into their history, burned into their bones like carbon. Their greatest cities had fallen more than once, to war, to plague, to the Earth itself. And every time they rose again, taller, colder, smarter. We burn and smolder. They evolve. We fear loss. They expect it. And they build from it. I remember a phrase from one of their ancient leaders, a man with a quiet smile and a voice like steel wrapped in velvet. I saw it once in an embassy hall. "You may knock us down, but you will never knock us out." No one believed it until now, and yet, amidst all the tension, the galaxy waited. For Earth to respond further, for Earth to return to the table, for Earth to send someone, anyone, to speak. Instead, Earth sent a seed, literally. It arrived on Council Station Sigma in an unmarked container. Inside was a Terran oak sapling just beginning to sprout, its roots wrapped in transparent gel, its leaves still trembling from the journey. No note, no explanation, just that small living thing. At first, the Council thought it was symbolic, a peace gesture, a new beginning. But someone, a planetary linguist, pointed out something chilling. The species name for the oak? Quercus robur. Its translation in ancient Terran dialect? The strong, the enduring. We didn't laugh. We planted it, right in the heart of council chambers, surrounded it with light, monitored it hourly. The act felt sacred. Or maybe it was survival instinct. Because now we weren't just studying Earth's power. We were studying Earth's patience, and hoping, quietly, we hadn't already exhausted it. I still visit the tree. Not because I enjoy it. There's something unsettling about it, really. But because it has become the place to be seen. Council envoys stand near it during press sessions. Scholars lecture beside it. Even Draxian brutes have started bringing offerings of soil from conquered worlds, as if appeasing some ancient spirit. And the humans? Still silent. For all their noise in the past, their brash speeches, their ill-fitting suits, their off-key national anthems, they had become the galaxy's quietest presence. But their silence echoed. We began to notice changes in their former allies. The Rasari Confederation, once known for its erratic foreign policy, adopted Terran-style fleet formations. The Lear Coalition implemented human encryption standards across all communications. One system even altered its planetary timekeeping to align with Earth's rotational cycles, not out of necessity, out of respect. I remember a junior Ivanti diplomat asking me, "Do you think they planned all of this?" I didn't answer, because that was the real terror. I didn't know. I had always thought of humans as improvisers, chaotic improvisers, punching far above their weight class through luck and stubbornness. But now I began to wonder if it wasn't chaos at all. What if the silence was the strategy? What if every joke, every misstep, every fumbling diplomatic moment had been camouflage? A mask for an intelligence too tired of being underestimated. And then came the final whisper. Not from Earth, from the inside. A council archivist, a frail, four-eyed being whose name I could never pronounce, discovered a sequence in the drone deployment patterns. The Terran drones were not randomly assigned. They were positioned, quite precisely, above systems with prior, unacknowledged, incidents involving human deaths, disappearances, or accidents swept under bureaucratic rugs. Each one, a reminder. Each one, a ledger entry. A slow, deliberate balancing of a cosmic scale. It changed the entire narrative. Hale was not the inciting incident. He was the last straw. The realization hit us like a collapsing star. Earth had been cataloging, watching, recording every slight, every dishonored agreement, every life lost to unfortunate misunderstanding. And it had waited years, perhaps decades, for one perfect, undeniable justification. And when they got it, they didn't roar. They moved, like gravity, irresistible, inevitable, indifferent to protest, a reckoning disguised as restraint. After this discovery, the Council initiated a quiet purge of sealed incident records. They locked down archives, erased files, burned hard copies. Species that had once mocked human sentimentality were now trembling over documents they had written in arrogance, casual decisions that had ended Terran lives. And as they deleted them, one question lingered. Did Earth already know? If so, it was too late. The drones still hung in the sky, not attacking, not leaving, just remembering. And maybe that was the most horrifying part of all. They didn't need to fire a single shot. The guilt was doing the damage for them. Something shifted in me. I, who had spent cycles counseling caution, promoting peace, believing in diplomacy even when it meant swallowing bile, began to feel something I hadn't felt in decades. Shame. Not just at what we'd done, but what we'd ignored, what we'd excused. The countless small dismissals, quiet violations, and diplomatic sacrifices made in the name of greater good. How many of those involved humans? How many Jonathans had we forgotten? I began reviewing old files, my own correspondence, minutes from interspecies mediations. One entry chilled me, a transport incident on the Turvos line 15 cycles ago. A human crew lost due to environmental miscalculation. Compensation denied. Case closed. I remembered laughing with my colleagues that day. Fragile species, someone said. Fragile. That was the word we kept using. The word that let us sleep at night. Fragile meant they wouldn't retaliate. Fragile meant they'd forgive. Fragile meant they were safe to ignore. But Earth had never been fragile. We were just willfully blind. Now the galaxy stood at a crossroads. Some called for action. The Draxians, reverting to form, proposed preemptive neutrality, military preparation wrapped in the thin veil of diplomacy. The Krixari wanted negotiations resumed immediately. The Vetrin, broken by their guilt, offered to place themselves under human protection. And Earth? Still silent, still watching. The drones never moved. They simply hovered. But now, wherever they appeared, local governments began constructing Terran embassies. Uninvited, unanswered, but necessary. It was the political equivalent of leaving your door unlocked after hearing a noise. We were no longer ruling the galaxy. We were hosting it until Earth decided to reclaim the keys. And then, without warning, something changed. The drones powered down. One by one, across the stars, they dimmed like candles after a long vigil. No signal, no explanation, just darkness. The first response was relief. We told ourselves it was over, that Earth had made its point and would now return to obscurity. But then came the replacement. Humans. Real ones. In the flesh. Small delegations appeared on dozens of major worlds. No ships detected their arrival. No diplomatic requests preceded them. They simply walked into council chambers, into strategic conferences, into classrooms, and listened. They said little. They smiled often. But they watched everything. And those of us who understood were terrified. Because now, Earth wasn't reminding us of what we'd done. It was learning what we might do next, and perhaps deciding whether it was worth forgiving. I encountered one of them on Trisari III, my homeworld. A young human woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. No title, no uniform, just a small emblem pinned to her jacket. A stylized leaf, silver against black. I asked what it meant. She smiled. It means we're planting roots. And just like that, I understood. The drones were never the future. They were the past. Earth had measured the galaxy, and now it was settling in. You would think the story ends there, with the drones gone, with humans walking among us again, with a sapling growing in the heart of our grand chamber like a scar we dare not touch. But no, that was just the prologue. The true transformation began when the humans stopped warning us and started teaching us, not with doctrine, not with conquest, but with questions. They sat in on our security briefings and asked, "Why do you assume that'll deter escalation?" They visited our universities and asked, "Why is your historical archive missing the last 2 wars?" They joined our councils and asked, "If this policy serves everyone, why are you exempt from it?" Not to accuse, not to humiliate, just to ask. And somehow, that was worse, because each question stripped away the facade. We realized how much we'd been surviving on ritual, inertia, and assumptions. Earth didn't come to dictate. Earth came to remind us what we had forgotten: accountability, empathy, consequences. Humans brought their contradictions with them, of course. They laughed too loudly. They mourned too openly. They challenged protocol with unnerving frequency. One even reprogrammed a Krixari diplomat's climate system as a prank. But beneath the chaos, there was clarity. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to belong. And the price of that belonging was simple. Remember what you've done. Decide what you will be. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. The woman with the silver leaf emblem, she returned, sat beside me during one of the new restorative councils that had sprung up like weeds across the galaxy. I asked her quietly, "Why now? Why reveal yourselves like this?" She looked at me, then up at the oak sapling growing behind us, its roots now deep enough to crack the marble tiles. Her answer? "Because we thought you were ready to listen." And I wept, not out of fear, not even guilt, but because in that moment I realized what made them so powerful. It wasn't their drones. It wasn't their weapons. It wasn't even their memory. It was their belief that even now, we might change, that we could still become worthy of standing beside them, not above them, not below them, beside. In the end, the story was never about Jonathan Hale. It was about us, and how one human death cracked the mirror we held to our galaxy, forcing us to see what we had become. Now, when I pass that tree in council chambers, I no longer feel dread. I feel responsibility. Because Earth is not watching anymore, they're waiting.